So you're really deep in the jungle, and right ahead of you is this huge dark temple, and surrounding is all these vines, and there's this mist at the very bottom, and you hear all these jungle sounds and monkeys yapping and all kinds of crazy creatures in the background. Sounds pretty cool, right? Well, you know what? This video is going to give you an idea how to do this. How do you get playing? How do you get someone to come play Pathfinder 2 with you? And the reason why I put this video together is because I spent the last 2 weeks playing Pathfinder 2e with my wife. And my wife has played Advanced Dungeons & Dragons years ago, and she's a super duper hardcore MMO player, and she was cool enough to say, listen, I got to learn some mechanics of the game I got to learn. I want you to come play with me, even if you hate it. But she loves it now. She absolutely loves it. And before, she's like, I'm not playing that. That sounds like crap, right? So this video, I'm going to take everything I learned from that experience using my old school AD&D basic skills as a game master and my multimedia references and game design references and things like that, and gear those ideas to you that may help you come up with ways to get playing the game, because that's what you want to do, right? The game's only been out about a month and a half now, and what you want to do is play. You want to play as a player, you want to play as a game master, and there's not a lot out there you can actually do. So you've got the Fall of Plaguestone, right? Big, long, kind of murder mystery story. It's going to take a really experienced GM to run that thing. And you can watch all the stuff on Geek and Sundry, watch other people playing, doing a lot of voice acting and dramatics and things like that. And you're sitting down, you're going through the core handbook, you're like, okay, how these characters work, what's the proficiency bonus? It's getting kind of complicated. And you're saying to yourself, I'm figuring out this build, I want to play with my local group, and then you find out that the guys don't want to switch over. They're going to stay with Pathfinder. Or they got a really awesome 5th edition D&D campaign they're playing. They just won't play. Well, what are you going to do? We've had some guys saying, well, why don't you try playing online with random idiots? Or why don't you try playing online with some people you know? And it's going to get to a point where, like, you really want to play the game, but you can't. You can't find anyone to play with. And because you can't find anyone to play with, you're eventually just going to not do anything. You're either going to go back to the other games you played before, or you're just going to give up completely. So this video is going to kind of share with you the way I approach this stuff when I was trying to get someone to play with me. Now, of course, it's a family member, and family members sometimes can have, they can either leverage, you can leverage things, do a chore for them, and they'll do a chore for you. But what really worked well for me, and I'm going to share those tips in this video. So let's go ahead and go through the overview. So we're going to talk about tips for get playing from a player's perspective. Say you're the player and you want to play, and you have really, maybe you come from 5th edition, maybe you played Pathfinder 1. If you're those kind of guys, you kind of already know what you want to do. You know what kind of character you want to build. You're digging through those player classes and those feats and all those little details, and you figure out this really awesome build for this monk you want to do, and you figured out how this works, and you got Flurry figured out. Those kind of players, you're probably not going to get a lot out of this video. You may find it kind of fun to hang out and see some of the neat creative things that I come up with when I run a game, which you might like that. And you say, hey, this guy runs this cool stuff. Why don't you do that in our game? But you're really going to get a benefit if you're a game master. And if you're a game master, even if you haven't played for a long time. So the second thing we're going to cover is game master tips. Because what you're trying to do is create a compelling experience for someone who either has never played before or isn't interested in playing Pathfinder Second Edition. It's just like someone saying, I'm not watching the Vikings. I've seen enough of those kinds of shows. It's always the same thing. I don't like House of Cards. I don't like Orange is the New Black. I don't care about the Avengers. How many times have you had this kind of stuff happening? You got a friend that's like, they love one thing, but they won't try anything else. So if you're a game master, you want your friend to come try to play the game, and they're just a player. They're like, no, I don't like the game master. I don't like the dungeon master. I just like to play. I'm in this real epic, whoop-de-doo Strahd campaign I've been playing for the past 19 years. Whatever the reason is, you want to tempt them to come play Pathfinder 2e with you. Even from the perspective of saying, dude, come over to my house. I got this really cool adventure I'm going to run for you. We can just do it for 3 hours as a one-shot. And if you like it, man, we can continue playing from there. Because what you need to do is like we did in the 70s and 80s, you need word-of-mouth evangelism happening. You need people to say, hey, that was really fun. These rules are a little weird. I want to figure this out more. You want to pique someone else's interest into playing, because what you want to do is you want to play. You may ultimately want to be a player playing in a cool campaign with a really great game master. Everyone dreams of that, because that's the best part of the game. One of the best parts of the game is playing it. Now, for me, I'm a designer. The best part for me is running the game. So you try to find either one of those slots. So this video is going to cover tips for you as a player and tips for someone who's going to be a game master. And it's really going to focus on playing with just 2 people. One game master, one player, because that is the smallest barrier to entry, as we say in the free-to-play gaming market, humanly possible. It's like free-to-play gaming, right? If you need your 7-year-old daughter or your 16-year-old boy or your 78-year-old father or your wife or whatever you want to do, or the dude you share the college dorm with, or your teaching assistant in college, whatever, or coworker or project lead you work with, or whatever, if someone is open to trying the game, has played something before with you, you just need one player. The problem is that you read the book and you hear the people in the Facebook forums like, oh, the game's bounced around a 4-player party. It's like, you can't do that. Well, guess how many people were playing Baldur's Gate? One. Okay, there was multiplayer. There's a lot of RPGs and computer games where you control large parties of people, like Dragon Age and Pillars of Eternity and Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale and Neverwinter Nights. It's very capable for human beings. People play war games controlling entire armies and battalions. Just because D&D has always started from the very beginning in Traveller and the other classic RPGs as you control one character does not mean this is some 25th page in the Bible of gaming that says thou shalt not run 2 characters. That is not the way it is. And when you want to get things going, you want to start having fun, I strongly encourage you to quickly make an adventure, pull an adventure from the past, and the focus is going to be, dude, it's just you and me, we're going to play. Right? Your friend's going to play, your girlfriend's going to play, your wife's going to play, your son or daughter, whoever it's going to be. It's just going to be the two of you. And if someone else wants to come hang out, that's cool too. When there's only one person, the social contract, and I'm not trying to be a philosophy major here, between the game master and the player is streamlined. The relationship is much more like buying and selling. It's like the client-architect relationship. It's it's not as boring, right? It's like the film director to the actor. It's like the relationship between two people in a give and take situation trying to have fun together. It's like playing basketball one-on-one or PvPing with one friend or doing adventures with one friend. People like to duo, husband and wife teams, partner teams, whatever you want to call it. So the whole emphasis of this video is going to focus on 2-player gaming. And if you want to add +1, +2, +3 to that, sure, because there's things in here you can use too. Let's get on to the next part of our list. We're going to leverage content, because sitting down and writing a module and designing all the maps and doing all the research is like doing a dissertation or a PhD. If you're a very creative person and you write a lot and you love images and you like to collect concept art, you will go down a rabbit hole that will take you forever. And sometimes the exercise of doing that is a lot of fun, but if you want to get playing, you can't spend time creating this massive, incredible world unless you're already awesome at doing that. So this video is tailored towards people who aren't already awesome at doing that and how they can pull stuff from an existing cool library, because you wouldn't be here at my channel in the first place if you've never bought an RPG game mechanic book ever, right? So you're going to have something in your library on your shelf from any game system, even from Traveller, okay? Even from Squad Leader, even from Advanced Dungeons and Dragons or Second Edition. There is somewhere in your house the Sinister Secret of Salt Marsh or the Tower of Inverness or Against the Giant. There's something you can use, or in this case, the Hidden Shrine of Tomoeshan. Now, another thing I want to talk about is what I call collaborative ruling. There's a lot of people in the Facebook groups I'm a member of, and there's kind of this like, guys, I want to ask this question. How does this really work with Flurry? Can I do this as a monk? And the expert players are really smart. You're like, oh, here's how it works. And someone's, oh, I'm not sure how that works. So there's kind of this relationship happening where players are scared to be wrong. Players are like, I don't want to say anything dumb. Or, I thought it worked this way. Now we're going to argue about how the rules as written, RAW, yada, yada, yada. The game doesn't have to be that way. There's a lot of people who really want to know exactly how the game plays because they're going to probably end up playing with complete strangers, and they want to be able to turn to the book and say, well, the way I understand this works with proficiency bonus, it's like this. And if you're untrained in something, you don't get this bonus here with you don't get the level bonus, you just get the bonus from your ability score, right? So collaborative ruling, we're going to go over that. That's a situation where the relationship is more open between you and the player the player's like, I want to attack from stealth. Can I do that? And you can actually spend a few months, hey, let's look this up in a book and see how it works real quick. And have you and the player together read the content and make a decision on how you're going to run it in the game. Because what you're trying to do is get on with playing. You can figure it out and correct your mistakes later, but that first game session, collaborative ruling works really, really well. And I had to do that a lot myself, okay? My player, which was my wife, prompted me to do things I had never done before. I didn't even know how it worked. I had to go searching through the index. I had to go online. I had to go search the archives of Nethys, and I still couldn't get my head wrapped around one rule. And I just used an old AD&D rule on the spot And the next day my wife had looked up the book and said, hey, that was wrong when you did this way. It's like this, right? So there's nothing wrong with you being wrong, okay? The last thing we're going to do is going to debrief over a 1 week campaign I did. We did it we were probably playing 4 or 5 hours a night for about a week, over 9 days. There was like a UFC fight in between there with Stipe Miocic finally crushing Daniel Cormier. And lastly, I want to hear about the key learnings. What did I learn? Because I consider myself a casual, okay? And I'm a hardcore PvP player, hardcore video game designer. I love Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, but I use so many house rules. Some people hate it. But I'm not a hardcore Pathfinder player. I was never a super hardcore 3.5 player. I did play a lot of 3rd edition and 2nd edition. So for me, I'm hoping to kind of reach people who want to play. They really want to play, but they don't have this incredible list of friends nearby. There's no one in the area playing and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to go over this debrief of what I did in this first week and how it worked. And maybe you can take some of those ideas and do it somewhere that you really like, and you can get someone to come play with you and get them hooked. Because once you get someone playing the game and you're having fun, the mechanics are there to be learned over time. There's so much content coming. And now actually is a really hard time for players. There's not a lot of stuff to play. You already are seeing people saying, when's someone going to get Rise of the Rune Lords? Or how do I do this one adventure path from 2007, you know? And so we want to talk about all that because there's not a lot of content available right now for you to start playing with. So not only are you trying to convince people to come play who don't have any content, they have so much other stuff and books on their shelves from other games, it's hard for them to jump in your game. So by using our bullet point number 4, which you're going to leverage existing content, and you're going to pick up some notes from my debrief from the 1 week campaign, you're going to have a completely awesome game session that will smoke everyone in your whole neighborhood, okay? Let's get on with it. That's our big introduction. I know it's kind of long, and it's like a 10-minute introduction, right? But let's get right into it. One of the first things you're going to want to do, you convince someone to come play. They're going to come to your house, hang out in your apartment. You can play at the office after work. What are you going to do? Use the pre-generated iconic characters. Do not say, we're going to get together and roll up a character. Don't do that. I'm telling you, man, do not do that. Don't do that. It will slow everything down. Creating a character in Pathfinder Second Edition is interesting, but there's a lot of flipping back and forth. You're trying to get the proficiency bonus. You're trying to pick up the skill. You've picked up an additional background that gives you the extra skill, and it starts getting like filling out taxes. And when there's no really solid online way to do it, there's an online website that has a builder called, I think it's Hero Lab or something. It's awkward. I personally am not a huge fan of it. It'll eventually become great. Right now, it's not great. That's just the honest truth. There is a cell phone app, very, very cool, being done by one guy. It's on a phone. It's not on my PC. I can't print stuff out. You can't even export to PDF yet. So right now, the support, I think Paizo needs to fix this, to tell you the truth. They need to hire someone to create a PC-based application, but I think the reason why they don't do it is because of all the licensing agreements with Fantasy Grounds and DT and all the other kind of things. So I think that's why that's not happening. If it had been me, I would have released some kind of rudimentary builder, but hey, I'm not the publisher. I'm a video game guy. But use the pre-generated iconic characters and then allow your player, you say, okay, you can play a rogue or you can play this druid with a cool animal companion. It doesn't have to be a snow leopard. It can be anything you want. You can play this cool fighter, but you can use a two-handed maul just like your ESO character, and let them know that, like, even though the pre-generated character, don't look at it and say, I don't like that pair of jeans. I only like this kind of shoes. I only like this kind of a shirt. If you put pictures of these characters in front of someone, they may not like what they see. You're going to have to sell it to them. So when you show them a picture of Aristiel, you say, oh, it's just like your rogue in World of Warcraft and Burning Crusade, stun locking people with Seal Fate and just blowing people up. But you're like dual wielding. You got a rapier in one hand. You can like do deadly damage. Really cool. But we can change all your weapons out and change everything. Like, oh, okay, I got it. Kind of like a rogue. Kind of like my Stamina Nightblade in Elder Scrolls Online. Or like your character from Arcade or whatever. Anyway, draw references to the character classes, to the known archetypes throughout the last 45 years, right? Whether from tabletop games or whatever you want. When you don't let them think that they have to play Linny, the little gnome druid, just the way she looks with her tattered burlap sack skirt on and whatever the devil, she's in her green hand, her little sickle, whoopee, she's tripping people. She's a gnome, she's running around tripping people. That's the only reason I can think of why this little girl would ever use a sickle, to trip people. So she's a nail-biting tripper with a big snow leopard she likes to ride. Okay, that's cute. But if you're playing with like a retired Air Force intelligence officer, they're not going to be too compelled to probably play that kind of character. Who knows, right? So what you need to do is print up those things. Just, you don't have to print them on fancy card stuff like that. Print them up, put them on a piece of paper and say, lay them all out. Ezrin, the sorcerer girl, all those different characters. And the reason why I say that is this. Everything is figured out. And that will be a great starting point, whether you've got Sela or Kira, Kyra, or Lim, or Mauricio, Valeros, Amiri, Ezrin. You've got every single basic character type. The thing that's different is the backgrounds are different. But once you get them playing, then they'll learn that, like, well, I can actually play a dwarven druid and come from a desert campaign kind of a background, like this, a sunburned, ornery dwarven guy that used to be a merchant trader, but he's totally in tune with nature, and he can find water in the middle of a sandstorm, and he uses the power of lightning and the wind to control things. He likes to explore tombs. That's your dwarf druid character. Okay, sure, go for it. So use those pre-generated iconic characters, right? And let the player pick the feats. Let them say, listen, here's the feats his character has. Here's the page in the book. Give him the book. Look through these abilities, because it's just like picking action abilities in an MMO. If you played League of Legends or Dota 2 or World of Warcraft or Warhammer Online, any game you played where it's got a button you press that does an ability, that's what a freaking feat is, okay? So have the person look through all the abilities and go, ice block, blah, 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 hunter's trap, what do I want to take? Let them pick the feats, then let them pick spells. Everyone understands the spells. Be sure to explain how cantrips work, so they can spam cast them and things like that. Let them understand how heal works, how it works a little different in this game than the other games, how grease works. You need to know a little bit about the rules yourself, but if you don't, like for example, my wife was like, can I cast grease and make this happen, blah, 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 blah. I said, well, let's look up and see how it works. So I actually had to look it up and how hydraulic push worked, a spell that I don't know from AD&D. There never was a hydraulic push spell in AD&D. So we wrote the page numbers down in little post-it notes, and we knew we could flip to page 342 or 344 at a moment's notice when that spell came up during the game and go, bam, let's just start using it. And so as we leveled up, we just threw post-it notes on top of the characters, and the armor class goes up, and you can see here, she picked nimble dodge feat from Mauricio, et cetera, et cetera. So start with those pre-generated iconics. Okay, I'll put you a link in the description if you've lost it. Use them, print them. They're front and back. I suggest you print it front and back, black and white at the office or something, or a FedEx office. And use that initial conversation with your player to show them the classes that are available and let them know you can change all these things. Actually, I'd encourage you not to start going down the right of like, well, can I play the druid, but I want to play a moon elf like in 3.5? If they really know that much about D&D, sure, let them do that. But you might get a little bogged down trying to alter that character too much. I actually suggest you just kind of change the character's name, get a cool new picture, pick the feats, pick the spells, and just go, all right? So for me, that worked really, really well. My wife and I were both a tag team in World of Warcraft for years and years. We were stun locking rogues in Vanilla WoW and Burning Crusade and Wrath of Lich King, and then we raided and we ran DKs, and we have everything. We have shamans, we have all kinds of crap, right? So for her and I, she knows what a rogue is. She knows what these characters like. So for her to sit down and go through the feats of the rogue, she's paying very close attention. She wants to know what they can do. She never really played a druid before in any of the games she ever had, but I had. So I could explain how the druid worked for her, and she could look through and pick the things. Another thing that's really important as the game master or the host of the game session, when that player starts customizing, like in this first picture we took in their first room, get the first room and the inciting incident going and start figuring out how to do things in exploration mode. Buy a pack of dice and say, which one of these set of dice you want to use, right? Get some ambient sounds going. I use a little crappy $100 Bluetooth color SoundLink Bose thing that I connect to a laptop in another room that plays audio tracks from Sword Coast Soundscapes. And sometimes in the videos, the Sword Coast Soundscapes, but it's a little too much. But in a game table, it's awesome. So when they were in a storm and a hurricane and got shipwrecked and they're in the jungle, I got cool soundscapes. I got 6 soundscapes I used for the entire adventure. We ran it for over a week, right? So the ambient sounds are cool. Get some candles going. If you drink wine, get your wine, water, Powerade, whatever you got, sodas, it doesn't matter to me. Get some notepads, get your battle map going, draw stuff out. And if you see on the right-hand side, on my side, I'm using C1, which is the Hidden Shrine of Timoashan. I don't want to play the Fall Plague Stone. I actually personally didn't like the theme that much. I think it's cool. I wanted to play the dungeon that I was in love with, the dungeon that you hear me go on and on and on about. And I knew my wife, who's an archaeologist, who's studying Maya, right, that she's going to be intrigued by the theming of that adventure. So Pick something that's going to tie into what your player already likes, right? And then create a kind of a rich tapestry of adventure around that setting. If you got a player that loves, the Desert of Desolation series, make an Egyptian themed thing. Make it with digging up tombs and Tutankhamun and Ramesses II, and you get the plethora of historical information. If you can tie something to historical stuff, you're going to go really, really far with it. Make sure the adventure is interesting to your player. The thing you're going to run for them has got to be interesting for them. I wouldn't want your new player to come to the table run anything. You need to run something. Even if you ultimately want to be a player, you need to run it. And make sure that inciting instance is really, really exciting. So let's go through the quick list on the right-hand side. I'm getting off tangent a little bit. Game Master. Player choices right off the bat. Picking the feats, picking the spells. Customizing a character. What do they look like? Rename them. They're going to ask you questions. What is a feat? How does this work? How does skills work? Have some basic answers for those kind of things. Oh, a feat's kind of like an ability, like in World of Warcraft. You press the ability, it doesn't really have cooldowns, but every time you have a turn, you could do this one move, or you could raise a shield and get a reaction. They go, oh, okay. Now don't just start explaining the whole system. Just answer the specific question. Give examples. Examples of something that's relatable to the player. If the player is not a gamer and never played games before, you may want to describe something in real life situation. Well, it's like shooting a free throw, but if you miss, you get to shoot again real quick. Something like that. Just use some kind of real world example, and don't try to overload them. Don't overload them. They're looking at this character sheet, there's perception, and there's all these numbers on the top and on the bottom, and they're like, oh my God, what am I going to do here? I don't know how to play this game. This is too confusing for me. There's too many spells. Why did I pick Lem the Bard? He's too complicated. What is padded armor? What is a thunderstone? Don't get too complicated with those kind of details. Feel free to steer the player away from that and say, oh, don't worry about the details. That'll come into play when we're playing the game. Right now, just focus on which one of those cool abilities you like and which spells are the most important to you. And oh, I can pick any one of these first level spells? Know the answers to that. The emphasis of the first session isn't for them to walk away with, wow, I spent 2 hours creating and customizing a character. Let them do that in 15 minutes. 15 minutes tops. While they're doing that, there's stuff you could be doing behind the screen. Go ahead and make it some highlighted notes, getting monsters ready if you haven't prepared ahead of time. I strongly suggest you prepare this thing ahead of time. Think of it as like a presentation you're going to give at an office to try to sell something for a $45 million job or something. Put some effort into it, right? But you want to spark their imagination. And you want the theme to be really, really clear for them right away. Let's get on to that part. This is where I excel. I'm the kind of a guy who's really good at storytelling, really good at writing, really good at capturing ideas. I like a lot of historical fiction. I like to blend historical fiction with my D&D games. So I'm going to give you tips here that may be fun for you. So you need something that we call an inciting incident, right? So for me, if this game session is going to be running, it's going to take my love for the hidden shrine of Timoashan, blending it for the player who's an actual Mayan archaeologist. We're going to use the history and the fable going from the Spanish conquistadors, stealing all the gold and killing all these different types of people in the temples in the Yucatan Peninsula. And the whole theme is as you, the player, are going to go visit these locations, you're looking for this lost Spanish treasure. So you're going to be visiting these ancient ruins of a long lost civilization, and obviously there was a conflict that happened a long time ago, and you're on the trail of this famous explorer, Alivardo Núñez or whatever, right? And so that's the inciting incident. You've got a map, maybe, or you've got a book, or you're in a huge ship, and it shipwrecks on this island. You see the ruins, and you've heard rumors about this, and you do a recall knowledge check, and you hear some of the ideas. Another thing you can do is you can get concept art from ArtStation. Like, go to the web and type in Maya ruins, not Mayan, it's Maya ruins, and you'll see all these pictures. In fact, the title screen of our entire episode, which is this one right here, I found this art by Sergei Vaznev, who lives in Minsk, Belarus, which is where a lot of the wargaming company makes a lot of the World of Tanks stuff is. And I want to give this guy full credit. This picture comes from him, right? I'm just using this to show you how you can find beautiful concept art done from the game industry people to embellish and add a lot of flavor to an adventure you want to do when you don't have anything, right? You have nothing to work with, right? So from there, you can start putting together ideas. And if you can't find any cool concept art that you like, use video games, right? For example, there's a screenshot from Elder Scrolls Online of the interior of one of the little delves, right? Little caves and stalagmites, a little torch, some kind of ruins going on. It's not super high resolution. It's not totally amazing, but it could work. When you show them, this is, one part of your dungeon, you've got this table, it's got this ceremonial table, and the distance is this light coming through the top of the cave. It's illuminating this room where you're going to go to next. And we do this in the game industry all the time. We show you landmarks that are ahead. There's these massive waterfalls happening underground. There's this mist rising up with the humidity. Someone's seeing a picture Adventure, it's 1,000 words. You go to Facebook, there's not a lot of text. There's a lot of pictures and a lot of videos. The scroll laying on the ground, what's that? If you go into the barrel, it probably just has an apple in it, right? So use pictures from video games. Take some screenshots, whether it's Black Desert Online, even World of Warcraft. If you find something that makes a great composition for like a money shot, like you take a picture with your phone turned in landscape mode with your friends, take a screenshot in a video game, hide the UI, take a screenshot, set it to one side, and you can pull it out and show it to your players, since you don't have Jeff D and Errol Otis and everyone else at your disposal drawing pictures for you, right? So that's another thing you can do. Like, for example, like you want to get a close-up of something. This is from one of the delves in Elder Scrolls Online. It has this obvious Mayan, influence, right? And so I'm running the Hidden Shrine of Timoashan. I don't have a cool picture that shows one of these falling, crumbling obelisk in this old area that's overgrown with ferns inside of a cavern. So when my players are going through this, my one player is going through this, and I show them a picture like this, my player and I have gone through this delve before. We know what's in it. But seeing the picture again reminds them, like, yeah, that's the theme. I get the vibe of this. This is really great. It's really interesting, right? So when you get to dramatic moments in your adventure, like they're about to embark on this one area, go down to this lower area, have a big boss fight, or whatever they're going to do, the images really help, paired with the sound effects playing in the background, really help things come alive. And that's one of the problems you're going to find with a lot of commercial modules, is they aren't doing these booklets of just full of pictures anymore. When they made the Tomb of Horrors, TSR, and when they made the Hidden Shrine of Timoashan, and even the Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, there was these booklets that had all these pictures in it, and no one does this anymore. It's something that needs to happen. So you don't have that. You're not a digital artist, probably. Go take screenshots from one of your favorite video games. Do it in first person so your character's not in the way, right? So these kind of things will help get your player excited. So when it comes together to theme, pick something you love. I knew I wanted to do this Hidden Shrine of Timoashan. I love this. My Black Ship of the Sunless is set in this type of time frame. I modified the Devil the map. I changed where secret doors were. I mean, I used to DM this map. I've DM'd this map probably like 20 times my whole life. The original adventure. But in this situation, I'm changing stuff, right? I've changed where the vampire was. I changed the lobster monster. I put a pit in a secret door in room number 8. There's all kinds of things I changed because I wanted to be different. I want my personal stamp on it. So you got a historical context. You got the old pictures from the old module you're using. You got a relatable theme. The content you're passionate about. You're not just using some store-bought module you've never, ever played before, because you're going to find yourself in deep crap if you do that kind of stuff. You're not going to be as successful if you're trying to run something that they don't know, that you don't know what it's all about. The player you're playing with needs to know that, wow, this is cool. The game master knows all these mysteries, all these secrets. I got to discover what they are. They're thinking to themselves, how am I going to discover all these mysteries? So you really need to know this chapter. Playing the game starts chapter 440, page 442. You're going to have to know the rooms in your module. I strongly suggest you use the existing module. In this case, I'm using an AD&D module. You're going to have to change all the enemies, right? Because the game is completely different now, and we'll talk about how to do that very slightly here. But you're going to need to understand like perception, religion, occult, arcana, recall knowledge, the simple DC of 15, or a flat check DC 10, or whatever it's going to be. You need to make sure the players actually have a chance to kind of succeed in the early days of exploration mode. You also want your first adventure to be a lot of exploration, and then spike that with combat. Exploration, encounter. Exploration, encounter. Exploration, encounter. And every single one of those things has to have a reward. Exploration reveals a secret in a new area, right? It can't just be I pick the lock and go through the door. That's why running something like, the Steading of the Hill Giant Chief isn't that compelling for a brand new player. You want them to tap into their Indiana Jones type of, Tomb Raider things they've experienced previously in their life. So you need to learn how to play the game as a game master by how to do these exploration mode basic checks to make it interesting to them. You're going to kind of want a module that has some of the blocks written out for you, like what to read to the players. Unless you're really, really good at improvising on the spot, you want to be able to say to them, like, you enter this room, there's a huge pile of garbage up ahead of you. It looks like there's something kind of a shiny, weird looking crustacean creature. It looks like it's sleeping. It's all covered with this glistening, wet, salt, briny smell. And it smells like fish heads in the room. The floor is all this murky, black, rotted tidal pool junk. The whole place just smells like a rotted beach. And as you enter the room, the light glimmers off your torch you're holding, and you see this thing, these two little eyes stalk, pops up, and they kind of twist around, they look at you. Then your player's like, oh shit. Your player's like, oh crap, what's that? This huge lobster dude's coming after us, man. If you read the original module, you'll see this thing has it speaks and uses telepathy and all this kind of business. Like, you don't have to do all that. Just make it simple. Make sure that the spaces that they enter is like, whoa, I'm vicariously in this crazy location. This is what the fun of adventure is all about. Those are the experiences you want your player to walk away with. You want them to walk away with that dramatic moment in their mind, or maybe they snuck down the hallway and investigated the whole room very, very carefully in stealth first, and they didn't even know it was like a sleeping lobster guy, right? And I used a tool. I reduced all the statistics and stat points and made him, because I had a picture of one. I wanted to show them a picture of what the guy looked like. Let's talk about that, right? So you can use compelling pictures, right? Like this Grave Knight. I mean, isn't that just an awesome picture? That looks like a conquistador, a long dead conquistador with a crazy helmet, a two-handed sword to some degree. He's a little too Death Knight-y looking if you think about it. But if I show my players that picture with the banner and all the tattered skulls, they're going to be like, holy crap, it's a boss from Diablo. If I show them the picture of the skeleton, it's like, why is this guy wearing an Elder Scrolls Online shield? It's just not as interesting. And if I do an adventure and you've got gnolls, they're going to think, that's like Red Ridge Mountains in Classic WoW. That's really boring and totally uninteresting. You show them a picture of this crazy green-skulled lobster, huge tinted crustacean lobster guy. He's come at you with all these tentacle things hanging out of his mouth like a mind flare. They're like, oh crap, that thing looks like it's 20 feet tall. So use the stat block from the chumpy gnoll, show them the picture of the Chul, or whatever it's called. Use the stat block from the skeleton, show them the picture of the Grave Knight. I mean, what's the big deal? It's just a picture. Show them the picture, use a different stat block. You don't need to sit down and, it's Rise of the Rune Lords, I got to redo all the stats, everything. It's just, you're trying to entertain a new player to get interested in playing the game. Rely on the Bestiary for balance. What I did, I made huge mistakes doing this, and that's why I want to share this with you. I try to do things like, I'll use my old D&D sensibilities, and I'll go through and change some of the statistics of some of the enemies. So, I'll make an AC 50 shell, the slug, and it'll do 3d12 damage. That'll just blow up level 1 characters, right? Or I tried using the Chul on page 64. I made his AC 15. It was a little low. Hit points 40. His speed was 30. I made him move really quickly. I made the damage really weak. So the fight with him wasn't very compelling. So what I should have done in hindsight is use like a level 2 version of the gnoll, so they could fight this thing and destroy it and kill it. Now they ended up not fighting and ended up figuring out a way to talk to the thing and get away from it. So, but if you're going to use Bestiary for balance, use the stat blocks. Trust the designers at Paizo. Trust Logan Bonner, Jason Bullman, Stephen Radney McFarlane, who's not with them anymore, but he's still also a good designer too, and Mark Seifert. Trust these guys. These guys know what they're doing. They know the balance better than me. They know the balance better than anyone. They wrote the book, literally. Them and their editors made this book for you. Make sure you use the Bestiary to your advantage, but use the pictures for the creatures that are be compelling and interesting for your players. You don't feel like you have to use boring kobolds in your adventure. You could have them be fighting Githyanki, but just use the kobold numbers, right? There could be reasons for that kind of stuff. So in that eventual fun is first. Drinking wine, having fun, taking notes. I used a couple of battle maps I had on hand that weren't even in the dungeon. I needed to know my players, what the game is about for them, what they were interested in doing. My player was an MMO player, right? My player played AD&D with me years and years and years ago, and so I had to do things like draw maps on the spot for the vampire in the lower right-hand corner. I'm sitting directly across from the player almost the whole time. Up in the upper right-hand corner, we see that first room. They're having a glass of wine, having fun. We play day 1, day 2, 3. Before you know it, we were playing every single day for over a week and a half. It was tons of fun. If you could play with someone that you're friends with or have a relationship with, or your partner or one of your kids, you're going to have more fun. If you try to find a random dude from the game store, you're going to get like the Magic the Gathering crack syndrome. You know what I'm saying? You want to find someone that you can actually have a conversation with and explain to them, like, well, for the way I understand it, as you're, investigating the creation story part of the niche, here, you're looking at it with your one character, make an occultism check for Mauricio, your character get renamed, and you're talking to them in a normal way. That person isn't going to, well, you don't really seem like you know the rules very well. But that's not really what it's about. This is where the collaborative ruling philosophy comes into play. I didn't understand how stealth worked. Basic for Gamers had not released his cool stealth video yet, right? Go over and check out his cool stealth video. It's really awesome. In fact, I'll put a card link right here in the video right now that points you to someone else's YouTube channel, all right? Because it's cool. So use collaborative ruling. And by that, I mean when you come across something in the game and you're not sure how to do it and how to rule it, say to your player that you're playing with, right? It's like, I'm not really sure how that works. Can you give me a second to look that up? And they might, sure, sure. And they're going to run in the kitchen and go do something else. Or they're going to grab a drink. Or they're going to look at something on their phone. Or maybe they're going to try to look it up too. You know, it's okay. Just spend 5 minutes and look something up. The player is really going to be the master of the character. Make them tell you. So how does that spell work? Have them tell you what the spell does. Let them learn how to look up what the feats do. You don't need to know any of this stuff. Oh, I've got this feat. It's called Trap Finder. It does this, this, and this. Like, okay, that's cool. So roll a d20, and I'll tell you what you found here, right? So let things empower the player to take ownership of 50% of the CRB. They own the spells, they own the feats, they own the ancestries, the backgrounds. Let them make the decisions about what to do as a player. If they don't know what to do, make a suggestion. If they're in the diorama looking at the little clay figures and stuff, and they're not sure what to do, you say, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to pick them up or set them down or try to look for anything particular with them? You give them some multiple choice options, right? There's nothing wrong with that, right? Reference the rules to benefit the player. So that's the way to do it. If there's a rule you don't know, because Pathfinder Second Edition with a 3-action economy, there's a lot of things are very different. It's not going to be as much of a innate gameplay right off the bat. There's going to be the way things work with initiative and perception is really different. You're going to find things like, holy crap, the druid's winning initiative and doesn't really have anything they can do that's really interesting, Or you not understand how to control the snow leopard pet very well, and you learn that, so how does the assist the druid thing work with the pet? Do I have to keep telling him to do it? And why won't he just auto attack like my hunter pet? And there's little subtleties like that coming from other types of games and media that your player's going to be like, why can't my pet just attack all the time? If you want to house rule it, go ahead, but try to learn the rules by the way they're written, by explaining to them that, well, this is how they have it here because they want you to use one of your actions to do that every round. So you're going to cast a spell and then tell your pet to keep doing this so it's flat-footed for the rogue, things like that, right? So let the player master the character rules, spells, feats. You try to master all the playing the game stuff from the chapter I mentioned in the previous slide. So we're almost done here. So we want to go through a quick little debrief on my 1 week campaign we did. We did one lower level of all the Shrine of Timoshan, heavily modified. I used all kinds of pictures and reference images from museums and from archaeological digs and dig sites from around the world to really capture the style and the theme. The bottom picture there, which is almost something out of Blackrock Spire, I'd show them this room. It's like, what do you want to do? And I would add additional details like the 2 tablets on the table or the place where someone's head would be decapitated, or the 2 little type of torches that you do things to and put offerings in them to make the door lower. As opposed to just having things like, I'll walk in the room and there's a big stone door and you see if you can search for traps and that's done. Let's just push on the door and it opens. Really want to engage the imagination of the player. If your player is a hack and slasher, play a hack and slash map. Tell them to go to an oasis and kill the local sheik and all of his men and rescue someone, right? Or go steal all the horses. Or like in Boot Hill, go downtown and kill the sheriff. If you have a combat-centric player, make the adventure about combat. If you got something that's about exploration mode, everyone can relate to exploration mode because that's a sense of adventure. Even when you go on a trip to somewhere you've never been before, you go to a city in Europe, you go to Chicago, you go to New York, you look on your Google Maps, oh, this is a cool restaurant, I've never been there before. You're in exploration mode, dude. You already know how to do this. So people understand how to do exploration mode. So that was one thing that was very, very successful in this situation, was having elements that were visually connected thematically throughout the whole dungeon as visual aids, tied in with the ambient sounds, tied in with the combat encounters being pretty hard, but no one died. They were pretty hard, but no one died. And I kept adjusting the difficulty level up and up and up to see where they would struggle. People almost get killed, and I would lower it back down a little bit. I would cheat a little bit to make sure the party wouldn't get killed. Now, if they did something terribly dumb, then that would be their problem, right? But you really want them to have a good time that first session. You don't want it to be a Monty Hall situation. You don't want to feel like, I was never challenged. This wasn't difficult at all. You want them to be surprised. You want them to be excited about what happened along the way. And ultimately, they did find the Spanish treasure. And I had these cool pictures of chests of what they look like. And they could look up these pictures on the web. It took like 2 minutes to find these pictures. Type in Spanish treasure chest. And there you go. I'd used some of Paizo's little battle map printed things for the 3-masted caravel. I had old maps from a long time ago from my previous shows I used for the entrance to the temple. I pulled up a picture of what the ship looked like from an angle because they played Divinity Original Sin, and they were confusing the size of the ship of a 3-masted caravel versus how big it was there. Oh, it's like the Mayflower. It's like Christopher Columbus's type, the what is it, the Pina? I can't remember the name of the ship. What was the name of the ship that they used? That they came to the New World? There's 3 of them. Someone say a comment for me. I've lost my history lesson. Oh, I can't remember it. It's just escaped my mind. So, in summary, by having simple, exotic, and exciting goals, things that the player could relate to, it was very, very successful. And along the way, as a game master, I got to learn tons of rules, and I also had a lot of homework I had to go away with before the next game session to make sure that it was fun. Because at the end of the day, what do you want to do? You want to play Pathfinder 2 with someone and you want to have fun, right? All the stuff on Facebook and checking the rules, that's going to come. That will always come with anything new. But if you don't have a person to play with, it's not going to be fun at all. So in summary, so new player, new DM, play first, learn as you go, engage that player immediately, use a theme that's relatable, that you're passionate about, that they're passionate about. Use audio and visuals. Try my cool audio method. Even if you just have a crappy little plug-in Logitech speaker for 17 bucks from Walmart plugged into a laptop, and you're playing a YouTube video, assuming you have an internet connection or whatever, the little bit of ambient sound effects in the background, they go a really long way. You use a lot of exploration. A lot of fun in D&D and Pathfinder is the exploration. Use it to solve mysteries. Don't just come into rooms where you pick the lock and open the door. How do you get the door open? Is it something as simple as two people need to stand on two pressure plates and then the door opens? I mean, things they've done in video games. Those things work pretty well for a player that's transitioning from that kind of a world. If you got a player who's transitioning from the Temple of Elemental Evil and made it through that long, boring slog back in 1983 or something, then okay, they're going to be a better player. But those are the kinds of things you really want to do. And lastly, the collaborative ruling on combat. That makes a really, really big difference, because if your player feels like you're winging everything, all right, they're going to lose confidence in your ability to run the game. If you say, well, listen, I'm not sure how this works. I need to look this up real quick. Do you mind if I look this up for a few minutes? If you want to help me try to find it, go to this Archive of Nethys, or however you pronounce it, website, and type in this and see if you can find it. And the two of you can find the answer to something really, really quickly. For example, how to control the druid pet every turn and how many actions it took was something I never thought would ever be in the game, but then I bumped into it because she was playing the Lenny druid, and she changed the snow leopard to a wolf, right? So those kinds of things are super useful. So I hope all these ideas help you figure out, okay, I want to play, I need to rope someone in. So these are all tools and ideas for you to rope someone to come play with you. Maybe someone who hasn't played anything before, because what better way to have someone to play with than someone that doesn't have any preconceived ideas from another game, isn't already playing in some 5th edition campaign you can't tear them away from, isn't necessarily the world's most brilliant rules lawyer from Pathfinder 1 that's going to counter you at every turn. You will eventually bump into those kind of players. You will eventually find expert Pathfinder 2e players to play with. Maybe that's your ultimate dream. But in the early days, having fun, you've got books, you want to use them, you want to play, rope in a new person into playing and let them see what the true magic is in role-playing games, tabletop, and the magic of adventure. All right, cool. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you hadn't liked, subscribe, as obviously, please do so. That's great. We've got a lot of cool content coming this month. I've had a ton of work going on, so I haven't been as active as I'd like to be, but we'll try to get that activity level up for you as soon as we can. And I hope this video to how to get playing has been helpful to you. Leave any tips and comments that you might have that share things with other people, like, oh, I was trying to get my kids to play and I had to make it really fun. So like, I don't have any children that play in the house with me, so if you have children and you have tips on how to help children play, I'd really love to hear that. I read a Facebook post from someone that said how they got their 7-year-old and their 12-year-old and 13-year-old all to play together, and the conflicts that happened along the way. Maybe you got nieces and nephews that want to play. I mean, if you're going to game master something for young people, you're entertaining them. If you've got 2 roommates you play with, like which roommate didn't really like it, what were they into, what did they say was not fun about it, share comments with other people so other folks out there who are struggling right now, going through a little bit of like edition war garbage happening lately, people don't want to come play Pathfinder 2nd Edition, find out, share information that worked for you, that may help someone new to the game trying to find someone to play with. And we've got a lot of people in the Facebook group from around the world, and even some folks here in the States like, oh man, I don't have to get onto Fantasy Grounds to play with a bunch of strangers, and I want to play with a person. You play with a real person face to face, so much more magical, so much more fun. It's a great way to build a friendship, and that's what the game's all about. The magic of adventure with your friends. All right, we'll talk to you later, and be sure to check out the art by Sergei Basnev on ArtStation. Go to artstation.com and look at his name. You can type in all the artist names from all the Paizo books or contract freelance artists. Flip to the inside cover of any book, from Paizo, any book in Pathfinder book, and look at the names of some of these artists, right? It's always going to be in the inside, like one of the first pages where the table of contents is. Then it's going to say cover artist, like Wayne Reynolds, most people know him, but look at all the interior artists. Like look up Alison Theus and look up Farhat Solhan. There's people from all around the world in Italy and Russia, in Malaysia, Thailand, David Melvin, tons of people. Contract artists of different looks, feels, and styles. And as a video game guy, I can't say enough how incredible some of these artists are. Look up their names, find their webpage, find their ArtStation stuff. Take their pictures and use them in your campaigns. This copyrighted material, you can't sell this stuff. Send them a quick note and say, hey man, I love your concept art, or hey, I think this, ask this young woman, the stuff you've done is fantastic, I really love it, I want to use it in my adventure campaign. Ask them for permission if you feel like you're nervous about that stuff. But check out, that's where you can find really a lot of beautiful concept art. And a lot of the stuff that people are creating out there is just absolutely magical, and those visuals will really help bring your game alive when you're playing with your friends. Okay, we're gonna leave it there. We'll stop there. We'll talk to you soon, and have a good one. Talk to you later. See ya.